My husband 39M knows about my 36F 6-month-long affair but hasn't told me. What can I do? Okay, so maybe let's start out with a little background. My husband and I first met when I was right out of college in a new city. He swept me off my feet, and from our first date it was magic. We married 3 years after that, and now we have an 8-year-old daughter. We both work pretty great jobs, and between caring for our daughter and work responsibility we are both busy people. But he always made time for me and treated me like royalty, even when I didn't do the same. Around the beginning of 2019 I became familiar with one of my coworkers, Nick Hess, about my age, and has a wife and 3 kids of his own. Nick and I started so innocent. We would go out to work outings together and sit close by and talk. I started sitting in his lap and we had some light touching but nothing too severe. I guess he reminded me of when my husband and I were young. There was a passion in Nick's eyes that drew me close to him. Eventually we started sleeping together. I knew during the whole time it was wrong, but I pushed through, never once thinking about the impact it could have on my husband. This morning started off as usual. My husband gets into the shower before me every day and I snooze before I have to hop in too. He mentioned last night that he was going to stop by Costco on the way home from work today, so I grabbed my husband's phone so I could add to the shopping list a few things that I wanted. I know my husband's iPhone lock code, so I went into the Notes app to add what I wanted, and when I opened the app, it opened to a folder with dates listed on it. The dates started the first week of March, and continued unabated until last week. I curiously opened one of the dates, and to my shock, it was a diary. I never knew my husband as the type of person to write out his thoughts and emotions. I read through the first couple entries of his diary and it broke my heart. The diary was all about my infidelity and how my husband was processing it. Looking at the dates that were listed, he discovered my affair about a month after it became physical. I quickly locked his phone and hid it. When he came out of the shower, I helped him look for the phone I hid. My husband has a work phone and a personal phone, so he was unfazed about not being able to find it. He was on a time crunch and left the house with only his work phone. I called off work and read each diary entry. I feel like I may vomit. Almost each entry for the first 3 months he discovered my affair were about how he planned on making her fall in love with me again. He had detailed in this diary the plans he had to make me forget about Nick. He talked about taking us on a week-long vacation so I couldn't see him. How he bought my favorite flowers and cooked my favorite dish, but I continued to see Nick. As the time went on and I continued to tell lies to my husband, he would write in the diary about how his resolve is beginning to waver, how he is becoming depressed and feels so lonely and unloved. After 3 months, the diary entries became wholly about his depression and how he cries every time he knows I am with Nick. He writes how every night before falling asleep he has visuals of Nick's body on top of mine, and how the visuals make him feel physically ill. He keeps writing in his diary how he doesn't want our daughter to grow up with divorced parents like he did. There is a diary entry from 1 month ago that stopped me in my tracks though. In the entry, my husband talks about how one night when I was with Nick and he put our daughter to bed, he was crying to himself like usual, but the tears stopped flowing. He says that his body finally stopped producing tears for his failed marriage. He says this night was the night the Band-Aid fully came off. In this entry he talks about how this 6-month-long process felt like a Band-Aid on his soul that was slowly being pulled off. And how now the Band-Aid was finally off, he felt a wave of relief. Like he finally got over me. 2 weeks ago he had another diary entry. In this one he talks about how wants to arrange to meet an e-court girl. He writes that he doesn't know how to start an affair, but having time with someone other than his wife will be an interesting experience. My husband knows my cheating schedule. He has planned on meeting this e-court sometime that I am with Nick. I don't know what to do at this point. I am at such a loss. I am so ashamed in myself. I kept telling myself that no one was getting hurt, that this affair would run its course and life would go back to normal. I never realized the pain and suffering that I put my husband through. I have cheated on him so many times, and he suffered through it. What can I do now? I am never going to cheat on my husband again, but it's probably too late to have this realization for me. Where do I go? What can I do? I know many of you will say some horrible things about me, and that's okay, but please help me save the marriage I ruined. Update: My story, by Curious Infidelity. I've been a lurker on here a while and reading the community's comments and posts has really helped. I wanted to share my story. We met at a sports club when we were in our mid-20s. She was beautiful, exotic, intelligent and exciting. We clicked immediately, sharing the same interests and sense of humor. We were both young and naive but grew together, learnt what each other needed and how to provide that. We had similar life goals, like the same sort of holidays and properties. We could talk for hours and hours about anything. My friends and family loved her, hers loved me, everything seemed perfect. We moved in together in our late 20s and had an amazing destination wedding in our early 30s. As we headed towards our mid-30s, we wanted to start a family. My wife came off the pill and we were looking at houses outside the city. That's when the affair started. Before diving into the details, I want to provide some background. After we got married, my wife started to retrain as a therapist. It's a long and emotionally intensive endeavor. They put you into groups with other trainees and you are encouraged to be as open and vulnerable as possible. During this time, my wife had started to lose touch with a lot of friends as they moved, had kids, etc. She had also put on a fair bit of weight and this made her self-conscious. April 2020 was probably a low point in our relationship. My stressful job and COVID restrictions were making me unhappy. My wife was on furlough paid leave and sat around in sweats watching TV all day. Time had gone from every other day to once a week. I decided to take action. I changed my job, got into running, made some new friends, removed all unhealthy food from the house and starting counting calories. My weight was fine, but I knew it would help my wife. To her credit, she engaged with the fitness drive and for the first time in years started to lose weight. We managed to go on holiday and were happy, relaxed and having time daily. We talked and joked constantly, were affectionate, supportive and encouraging. I thought the small blip was behind us. I couldn't have imagined the storm that was coming. Late 2020, my wife explained that she had always been a bit bi-curious and wanted to explore that side of herself. I was initially open to the idea, but as we discussed it more, I became very wary. She didn't just want to have a ONS with a random girl, she wanted to have a relationship with the women she'd met in her therapy group. I explained how this would be dangerous for our relationship, but she seemed unusually stubborn. She then started attacking our relationship. I thought it was good but was keen to improve, so we went into MC, which was very weird. We would discuss relationship issues, but whenever we found solutions, my wife would get angry and throw another problem out there. Looking back, I can tell that her mo was to justify the cheating and she had no interest in our relationship. 2 sessions in, she left our house to live with her parents for a week. While there, she called me up and told me that she'd had time with the women AP. I was furious and went to a live with a buddy for a few days. When I came back, I told her that I could forgive, but she had to go no contact with AP. We continued therapy but got nowhere. My wife refused to come home and said things like, "I'm not interested in your happiness right now." It soon emerged that she was still sleeping with AP. I got mad and asked for a divorce. Over the next few weeks, my wife threw all the emotionally abusive tactics and lies she could to try and justify herself. "I've done nothing wrong. We never said we were monogamous. This minor thing you did 6 years ago caused this. The relationship has been broken for years and would have dissolved anyway." Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and cut contact. After the split, I was a wreck. I couldn't concentrate at work and was making mistakes. I would spend hours lying on the floor crying my eyes out. I couldn't believe what my life had become. I was looking forward to being a father and moving into a nice country house. Now I'm a 35-year single guy living with his parents. I can't believe how stupid I've been. There were so many warning signs. She even told me she was going to this girl's house when I knew there was chemistry. I suppose I just came from a place where I trusted her not to destroy our relationship. I didn't really see AP as a threat. She's weird and can't give my wife the life she once wanted. Some of the things my wife said hurt so much. This is the person who I committed the rest of my life to, the relationship I valued above all others. She had always had my back, but now she's stabbing me in it. I wake up every day thinking of her. I spend hours each day blaming myself, or being angry at her, or reminiscing about all the wonderful times we've spent together. Most of all, I'm still in shock. I still can't believe it's happened. We were such a great couple and she's thrown it away. Her friends, family and therapist all warned her against continuing the affair. She could see the pain it was causing me, knew the children and family she'd always wanted would be lost, but she did it anyway.